She's My Prey by Celeste King, Episode 7.
You know, Roth, I've been thinking about our discussion on luck and fate.
Oh yeah? What about it?
Well, I can't help but wonder if there's more to it than just random chance. Like, what if there's some unseen force guiding us, bringing us together in this moment?
I don't know. Seems a bit mystical for my taste. I'm more of a pragmatist.
Pragmatic, huh? I like that in a man. Though I have to admit, the idea of destiny has a certain appeal to me.
Is that so? What exactly do you think destiny has in store for us, Samara?
Well, I'm not sure yet, but I have a feeling we're about to find out.
I'm all ears. Lead the way, oh mystical one.
Why don't we start by you taking me out for dinner tonight? See where the fates decide to guide us.
It's a date then. Can't argue with destiny.
If you ever want the uncut, ad-free Celeste King audiobooks, including the full season of She's My Prey, you can find them at worldsofprotheka.com. Use promo code YouTube30 for a 30% discount on any digital product like bundles, audiobooks, and ebooks.
This is Episode 7 of Celeste King's She's My Prey.
Chapter 36. Sadie. The bathroom is quite lovely, large with a deep soaking tub. There are shelves crowded with jars of bath salts and oils, along with plenty of fluffy cloths to dry with. A fresh dressing gown hangs off the back of the door. Jorban and Garrigal really seem to take their job of giving aid to others seriously. It's strange, though, that they seem particularly interested in Ranem and me. I'm grateful for their help, but I wish they would be a little less mysterious. I've had enough of others holding things over my head. And frankly, I've had enough of others dictating my fate as well. The elves who kidnapped me tried to hurt me. I'm sick of feeling like a helpless victim. The only person who has never made me feel like I was incapable of holding my own is Ranem. It's been such a welcome change too, being around someone like him. Even with his comments about my blood calling to him and his declaration that I am his mate, he's never made me feel like an object to be owned. Not like Indor. It's strange. I find myself thinking back to how I compared them before. Indor is objectively handsome, with regal features and noble blood. Ranem, when I first met him, frightened me with his appearance. From his skeletal form to the way he wore the tattered clothing of his victims, he gave every impression of being a monster. Yet Indor is the one who tried to force me to be his unwitting companion, while Ranem has done nothing but try to protect me and care for me. The real monster is the one in fine clothing, surrounded by luxury and wealth. If beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as we were taught at the academy, then with every passing day, Ranem has grown more handsome to me, more beautiful. I like how his eyes bore into mine, even without pupils, whenever we talk. I like how I can read every emotion in his heart. He's intense, in a good way, thoughtful, caring, and he's completely open about who he is. I don't know if I'm falling for him, but I definitely feel like he's stirring desire inside of me. And what's more, I'm alive. I've spent so much time being worried about what will happen to me that I barely lived. Spent all day cooped up in my room in the bordello, or in the library with my books when I was allowed out. I rarely ventured outside of the bordello. Maybe a few times for dress fittings or accompanying Madame on an errand, but for the most part, I lived as a bird in a cage yearning for freedom. Well, I'm alive, and I want to keep living. I want to experience life to the fullest, and I want to give in to my desires for Ranem. I bite my lip as I undress, smoothing hands over my body. I'm blessed in the looks department, tall, lithe and doll-like to others. I've been told I was beautiful for a long time, by many people. I know that even with my scent being potent to Ranem, I'm still attractive to him. And I've learned so much about how to be with men that I might as well use it to my advantage. I want to be with Ranem, and to please him, and to experience all the things I was taught. My desires always felt like a trap to me, something to avoid at all costs. But now it feels freeing to have desires and want to act on them. It's as though I'm the woman the bordello always wanted me to be. But this time, I'm not being forced to act on my desires. It's all for myself. What we all want is a steamy scene read to us without interruption. Unfortunately, that's not something YouTube will allow. For access to the uncut version of this audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com. Use code YouTube30 for 30% of all episodes without having to wait for the next to drop. Back to the story.
Chapter 37. Ranem. As I scoop Sadie up into my arms, my entire being is alight with the fires of desire. I've never felt this way, and I want her. I want to wrap myself around her and connect our bodies until they're closer than close. Sadie hasn't helped with all the teasing and dark looks she's given me, touching me intimately in ways that no one else has touched me before. I lay her out on the bed, and she lowers her lashes, gazing at me with intensity behind her big blue eyes. My tongue darts out, licking a stripe up the side of her cheek, kissing her in the way that we kiss. I'm not certain how to achieve intercourse, I tell her. I've only witnessed coupling between the beasts of the forest. I'll show you, she whispers. Do you trust me, Ranem? With my life, I answer. She flips our positions, nudging me to lay on the bed while she climbs atop me, straddling my waist. I'm going to show you how I was taught to pleasure men, she says, her voice deep and husky. I may have abhorred my lessons, but they've come in handy for something. She lets out a chuckle. I'm going to undress you now, she adds. I don't know why she's being so patient. All I want is to rip off my clothing and take her intimately, right here and now. But she's treating me as if I'm something small and fragile right now. Not like a huge forest monster, but more like a small suru, easily startled. I can take whatever you give me, I tell her, grabbing her wrist before she can tug down my trousers. I know, she says, looking up at me with her large, debt-like eyes. But this isn't just about what you can or can't take. This is my first time, too. I want to feel good. Let me take control, just this once. How can I say no when she looks at me like that? I'm determined to learn everything I can from her. Let her show me all the ways that men and women can make each other feel good. And then I'll take control and pleasure her until she's mindless, and all she knows is how to say my name. Do you want to witness my deep exploration of Sadie's perfect body? Well, since YouTube can't handle the heat, you can listen to every last inch of discovery with the unabridged, uncut audiobook. Find it on worldsofprotheka.com and use promo code YouTube30 to get 30% off at checkout. Let's get back to the story. In a world of elves, demons, and liches.
What would you choose?
Power?
Or passion?
Would you stab the monster in the back?
Or take him to bed?
The immersive fantasy audiobook bundle has it all.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com to get access.
Use code YouTube30 to get an additional 30% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive. Chapter 38. Sadie. I surface from sleep slowly, as if floating to the top of a large body of water. I don't remember falling asleep at all, but the pleasant ache between my thighs and the warm body wrapped around mine spur on memories of last night. A soft smile stretches across my lips as I think of the way Ranem held me, the way his tongue felt gliding across my skin. I shift gently, craning my neck to see Ranem behind me. His heart is a rich blue, deep like the night sky, and his jaw is slightly slack in sleep. I can't believe there was a time that I looked at him with anything other than the adoration I feel for him now. He casts an intimidating figure, his large body rippling with muscles and the hard, exposed bone of his skull, giving way to forked horns. To the untrained eye, he looks terrifying, like something straight out of a nightmare. To me, he's home. The sleepy blue of Ranem's heart begins to ebb into his resting shade of red as I stir, signalling his rise back to consciousness. He cocks his skull down slightly, as if to look me in the eyes, and I smile softly up at him. "Hi," I murmur, reaching a hand up to draw a gentle line along the curve of his jaw. "Hi," Ranem responds, his sleep-roughened voice making my stomach flip. I would have imagined that after all of the pleasure he wrought from me last night, I'd be so thoroughly sated that I couldn't even think about sex. Looking up at him now, however, I'm not sure how I thought I'd ever be able to get enough of him. I was taught at the bordello that sex could be pleasurable, but, in truth, I never really expected it to be. We were told that we'd be the tools of pleasure, just another object in a dark elf's arsenal used to please and coerce release as they saw fit. Even knowing that intimacy could be pleasurable, I never knew it could be the way that it was with Ranem. It was beyond simply pleasurable, it was a joining, in every sense of the word. It's as if my body, my mind, my heart, have all been rewired around Ranem. I'm his in every way, and I don't yet know what to make of that. Ranem dips his head, his tongue unfurling as he licks a long, lazy stripe across my collarbone and up my neck. A shiver races down my spine at the contact, my mind immediately returning to how it felt to have his tongue sliding across other parts of my body. A small moan slips from between my lips at the contact, my body arching toward Ranem's touch. A low, rough sound shakes free from his chest at my response, one of his massive hands moving to trace the lines of my ribs beneath my skin. I shift so that I'm facing him fully, allowing him better access to my still nude body as I peer up at him from beneath my lashes. So, about those other ways we can make each other climax, I say casually, a smile playing on my lips. Ranem's heart streaks violet and yellow between us, making me giggle at his obvious excitement. I would very much like to learn those other ways, he replies throatily, his fingers moving up my torso to knead my breast. His thumb swipes across my chest, my back arching at the sensation. I wind my arms around his neck, pulling myself closer so that there's no space left between us as I pepper kisses across his mandible. Ranem's length hardens between us, and I swirl my hips against him, revelling in the groan my motions pull from him. It looks like part of this chapter is too spicy for YouTube. For access to the uncut, unedited audiobook, you can find every naughty chapter on worldsofprotheka.com. With discount code YouTube30, you can get 30% off of the entire Shadow Monsters Prey audiobook without having to wait for the next episode to drop. Where did we leave off? Following a knock at the door, I all but leap off of Ranem, gathering the blankets to my chest as I land on the bed beside him. Ranem lets loose a deadly growl as his head whips toward the door, the soft, pulsing violet of his heart turning a crimson I know well enough now to associate with his more violent tendencies. I place what I hope is a soothing hand on his chest to steady him as I try to quell my own shaking at the idea of being caught in such a compromising position. "Yes," I call, my voice shrill and exposing my growing embarrassment. There's some shuffling outside of the door before I hear Jorban clear his throat. "I was just coming to invite the two of you up to breakfast so we could discuss everything," Jorban offers lamely. "We'll be right there," I say a little too quickly, cutting off whatever Ranem was about to say as he glowers at the closed door. Jordan's footsteps recede quickly, and I groan, pulling the blankets up over my head as if to hide from my humiliation. "We do not have to," Ranem says, tugging the blankets away from my face. "Yes, we do," I say with a sigh, sliding out of bed. Ranem huffs his annoyance, and if I wasn't so thoroughly embarrassed, I might laugh. Besides, we need answers. "I need you more," Ranem grumbles, but gets out of bed. This time I can't fight the laugh that escapes me as I tug my clothes on. Ranem is dressed in a flash, and as we make our way out of the door, I pat his chest. "We can do more of that later," I promise quietly. We ascend the stairs in silence, the playful afterglow of our night together fading with every step. My stomach turns leaden as we reach the library, the promise of answers I'm not sure I want to know hanging over my head. I've trusted Jorban nearly implicitly since I've met him. Something about the quiet dark elf librarian seemed different from the start, and I want to believe I can continue to trust him, but after his mention of having kept tabs on Ranem and I can't help but feel uneasy. Jorban gives Ranem and I a smile as we walk into the library and motions for us to follow him. Ranem walks so closely to me that I can feel his fur brush against my shoulder, clearly on high alert for whatever threats may await us. The knowledge that he's so prepared to keep me safe soothes my frayed nerves, and when Jorban leads us into a small, cosy side room bedecked with tables and chairs, I launch into all of the questions I have immediately. What do you have to tell us? Why have you been keeping tabs on us? What do you know about Indor and Gandalf? Why are they after me? Jorban gives me a patient smile and waves at an empty chair at the table. Heeding his quiet demand, I sit, Ranem lingering on his feet behind me like a guardian angel. Much to my chagrin, Jorban doesn't answer my questions as soon as I sit down, instead motioning to a plate of pastries and a kettle of tea on the table. Would you like anything to eat before I answer your questions? No, I say sharply, my frustration getting the better of me. Tell us what you know, elf. I would not recommend lying, Ranem grinds out from over my shoulder. Despite the tension hanging heavily in the air, Jorban's smile never wavers. He settles into a chair across from me, helping himself to a mug of tea and taking a long sip before he speaks again. I understand why the two of you are so anxious for answers, and I apologise for all of the rather cloak and dagger tactics. You must understand, before I begin, that all of this was of the utmost importance. I could not risk revealing the answers you seek too soon. Fingers of ice dance along my spine at Jorban's words, my nerves returning tenfold. What do you mean? I ask. Jorban leans forward, levelling an intense look at me. What do you know of your lineage, Sadie? He asks. The question catches me off guard, and I blink at him, struggling to connect this question with the situation at hand. My lineage, I repeat, and Jorban nods. Nothing, I suppose. The bordello was the only place I'd ever known until recently. The madam thinks it better to get her girls as young as possible, so we don't remember anything else, I say slowly, hearing how bleak that sounds. Jorban nods, giving me a sad smile, before leaning back into his chair. Long ago, when Protheka was still new, a portal between worlds was opened. Jorban begins. This portal connected Protheka to a planet called Earth, the home planet of humans. Humans came through the portal in droves, for one reason or another, thinking Protheka could save them from the invasion of their planet. As you know, having lived here, they were wrong. Humans were used to being the strongest, smartest being on their planet, but here on Protheka, they were little more than livestock. Dark elves quickly began to make use of humans, enslaving them in all manner of ways. The humans were powerless against them, and many died in this power struggle. Most of those that were left accepted their fate, knowing they could never escape long enough to return home. Except for one man, Jorban says, his unnerving, violet gaze holding mine. My mind spins as I try to make sense of the story he's telling me, how it could possibly connect to Indor and Gandalf, or his question about my lineage, but before I can demand to know how any of this matters to me, Jorban continues. You see, this man was different. He'd never known he was different on Earth, having no tangible abilities, but the magic of Protheka must have activated something within him. That man, Iphitus, refused to bow to the Dark Elves. Iphitus rallied his people against the Dark Elves, leading them on a journey back to the portal, which had been opened on a small island called Calindria. The humans never should have been able to rise up against the Dark Elves, having no magic and no other abilities, but Iphitus was special. Legend has it that he was impervious to the magic of Dark Elves, that he weathered attack after attack, curse after curse, without ever being affected. He barreled through any magical defences protecting Calindria that the Dark Elves set up, as if he was somehow divinely protected. Iphitus's band of humans made it back to Calindria, to the portal, but by that time word had spread of the mysterious human man who could not be harmed by magic. The Dark Elves sent legions upon legions of Miyu after the humans, and intercepted them at the island before they could reach the portal. A great battle was waged between them, lasting 7 days and 7 nights, with Ephitus at the helm. It wasn't just that the Dark Elves did not want the humans to escape, you see. When they found out about Ephitus's ability to withstand magic, they realised that they could use him. Magic of any kind demands a price, and only so much magic can be wielded by one being due to the havoc it can wreak on their physical form. A human with such high levels of resistance to magic could act as a conduit. Using Ephitus, the Dark Elves could channel massive amounts of magic through him and reach an untold level of power. So the battle raged on, and eventually the Dark Elves got the upper hand. They killed every last human involved in the uprising, sparing no one, in the hopes of finding Ephitus and using him for their own plans. After the dust cleared and every human was slaughtered, however, Ephitus was nowhere to be found. He simply disappeared, and though the Dark Elves scoured the planet for him, they never found any sign of him. Naturally, the Dark Elves erased this human uprising from history. They did not want other humans thinking they could escape, or giving power to Ephitus or any other human who may share his abilities by allowing him to be worshipped behind closed doors. And so history was rewritten, and the story of Ephitus and the other brave humans who gave their lives to fight for their freedom was buried. When Jorban finishes his story, he takes another long sip of his tea, giving me time to try and digest what he's just told me. My eyes burn with unshed tears for Ephitus and the other humans in Jorban's story, but while my history lessons were certainly lacking at the bordello, the tale Jorban spun is incredibly hard to believe. "I do not understand," Ranem says from behind me. Gratitude for him sweeps through me as he speaks. I don't even know how to begin putting words to the thoughts racing through my head, and yet Ranem reacts as if he's able to read my mind. "You will soon," Jorban responds kindly, his violet eyes finding mine again. How does this have anything to do with me?" I ask, my hands trembling beneath the table. I fist my fingers tightly into my skirt, trying to ground myself as Jorban's stare turns intense once again. "Because, my dear Sadie, Ephitus never left Protheka. He disappeared from the eyes of the Dark Elves, but he did not disappear entirely. He escaped the Battle of Calindria, and he went on to live a full life. He had a family, and continued his fight against the Dark Elves in secret. A cold sweat trickles down my back, the blood draining from my face as the pieces begin to connect in my mind. This story is important to you because it is yours. You are the final descendant of Ephitus. You share his powers. You are the salvation of Protheka." Chapter 39. Sadie. What? Everything sounds like it's miles away as Jorban's words echo between my ears. Final descendant. Share his powers. You are the salvation of Protheka. I vaguely feel Ranem move past me, his voice echoing around me. I blink, and everything moves out of slow motion, the world spinning too fast around me. "You have no claim to her!" Ranem snarls at Jorban, his body wound so tightly it looks as if he could snap at any moment. "I am not trying to lay any claim," Jorban says placatingly, ever patient with us. "I have promised the two of you answers, and that is what I'm trying to give you." "Lies?" Ranem seethes, his claws extending from his fingers as he looks at Jorban. "You have told us nothing of Indor or his father. All you've done is upset her. Try to force her to be something she has no desire to be." "I understand your protective nature," Jorban replies, taking another sip of his tea. "I admire it even. I am glad to know Sadie has such an ardent, capable protector. If you allow me to continue, I promise that all of this will make sense. I only want Sadie to be informed of her lineage, as it will affect her life whether she knows it or not. I want to know, I say weakly, finally finding my voice. Ranem, please, just hold my hand, I ask, not caring how pathetic I sound. Ranem's aggressive stance softens immediately as he comes to my side, wrapping his massive hand around mine. His touch immediately soothes me, giving me the strength I need to meet Jorban's eyes again. But, I begin, trying to organise my thoughts. If the Dark Elves had buried this uprising, erased it from history as you said, then how do you know about it? How do you know that I'm Iphitus's last descendant? Jorban grins, something like pride gleaming in his eyes. Ah, and there's the question, isn't it? You are much smarter than you give yourself credit for, Sadie, he says with a wink. I suppose it would be easier to explain if I was more honest with you. Jorban stands suddenly from his chair, and in a flash Ranem's hand leaves mine, his claws extending once more and his heart pulsing a deep, warning red. Jorban makes no move toward me, however, and instead waves his arm slowly across his face. Before my very eyes, Jorban begins to change. His slate-grey skin grows mottled and green. The regal, dark elf planes of his face grow duller, more bulbous. His bulky figure becomes more pronounced, losing the litheness of dark elves as tusks sprout from his mouth, and the left side of his face becomes disfigured with horrific burn scars. I'm too stunned to properly react, paralysed to my seat as Jorban turns from the dark elf I've come to know him as, into a strange hybrid between an orc and a dark elf. Ranem growls, low and deep, at the half-orc, half-dark elf in front of us, as he pulls me from my chair and thrusts me behind him. I am still the same person, Jorban says soothingly, his voice slightly deeper than before. We simply have more in common than you thought, Ranem. People look at us as monsters. Only we know that we are not. I step out from behind Ranem, placing a soothing hand on his arm as I stare at Jorban. You're half-orc, I say breathlessly, the fear that was pounding through me mere moments ago ebbing away into curiosity. I've never seen a half-orc, half-dark elf. They're unheard of on Protheka. Dark elves and orcs are sworn enemies. Impossible, Ranem retorts, despite Jorban standing before us. I am, Jorban confirms. I apologise for the theatrics, but I'm sure you understand why the glamour is necessary. I nod in lieu of a response, not trusting myself with words. The confusion I felt before doesn't even hold a candle to the way I feel now. Between Jorban's real identity, the story he's spun for us, and his assertions about my lineage, I can only wonder how any of this connects to Indor and Gandalf. You asked how I would know of Iphitus and his plight, Jorban says gently, motioning again at the chair across from him. I take a seat, already knowing that whatever he has to say I should be sitting down for. Ranem lingers anxiously next to me, and I reach out and give his hand a squeeze, trying to offer him some semblance of comfort. The humans weren't the only ones to participate in the uprising against the Dark Elves. The orcs, my mother's people, were oppressed beneath the Dark Elves for quite some time before humans came to Protheka, Jorban begins. My mother's clan accepted both Dark Elves and orcs, providing a safe space for those of both races who fell in love and wished to have families. We were hunted mercilessly by the Dark Elves for harbouring abominations, as they called us. Children of both races. A forlorn, grief-stricken look crosses Jorban's face as he speaks of his clan, and my heart aches for him. Not all Dark Elves are monsters. There are some, now more than ever, that wish to be able to coexist with the other races peacefully. Unfortunately, however, they are still a minority. But my hope, and the hope of my clan, was to one day see a more just Protheka rise from the ashes of the society that's been built around us. Iphitus and the uprising was before my time, of course, and even my mother's, but it was the pride of our clan to try and aid the humans in their escape. My people knew what it meant to long for their freedom, and we, along with other clans of our kind, fought alongside them. When it was clear the battle would be lost, my people aided Iphitus in his escape. He wanted to die alongside his people and refused to leave them. But we knew what kind of destruction would be wrought if he fell into the hands of the Dark Elves, so we forced him aboard one of our ships and escaped. My clan swore to protect Iphitus and his descendants from then on. It was not safe for Iphitus or his kin to live alongside us, however. The presence of humans among us would be too suspicious, and my people were already being hunted as it was. So instead we found a remote wooded area off the coast of Tlos. Iphitus stayed there, helping to rescue humans who escaped Dark Elf oppression from other cities. It was then that he met his wife, and they bore their child. Their child, a boy they named Atlas, shared his father's gifts. He was resistant to all forms of magic, and with much practice, was able to extend that resistance like a shield to others. My clan would send members out to check on the family periodically and assist in honing Atlas's powers, and after Iphitus passed peacefully in his bed, we visited more frequently to keep tabs on the family. This continued for a few more generations, given that the lifespans of human beings are shorter than those of dark elves or orcs. My mother's father once visited the family as a young child, and at that point, a young woman named Elysia held the power we sought to protect. She always spoke highly of her father and his memories of Elysia. Jorban smiles wistfully, his eyes distant as he recounts his mother, and I find myself wanting to know more about her. Jorban has proven to be an incredible person and is dedicated to his purpose above all else. I think I would have liked to have met the woman who raised him. As I find myself opening my mouth to ask about his upbringing, his family, Jorban's face grows harder, and he begins to speak again. It was shortly after my mother was born that the Dark Elves came too close to discovering Iphitus's family. My clan was able to intervene just in time and draw them away from the cabin in the woods, but we paid a heavy price to protect them. Most of my clan was slaughtered, and my mother was orphaned. It was years until she found members of our clan again, along with my father. They mated, and shortly after, they had me. But at that point, Elysia and her baby boy, who we thought would inherit her powers, were gone. When my clan rebanded, we made it our mission to track them down. It was all my mother and father worked toward, thinking that the time was coming quickly for the descendant of Iphitus to rise to power and help bring in a new Protheka. I lean forward in my chair, hanging on Jorban's every word. If they found me, it means they must have found my parents. Does he know them? Will I get to meet them? I put my hopes and desires for a family aside long ago, thinking the bordello would be all I ever had, but that old yearning stirs in my chest once again at the idea of knowing something, anything, about my family. As if he can see the thoughts on my face, Jorban smiles sadly. My heart plummets into my stomach, and he continues, his voice soft and gentler than before. We had just figured out where your father, the last descendant of Iphitus, was when the Dark Elves found us again. They set the camp on fire, Jorban says, motioning to the disfigured left side of his face. And my clan died. I survived by chance alone, and later reunited with Garagal. By the time we arrived on Oshta and travelled to Orthani, the trail on your family had gone cold. It can't have gone cold, I blurt out, unable to stop myself. You found me, which means you must know something about my family. Jorban shifts uneasily in his chair, dropping my eyes, and the realization hits me. He knows something, but he doesn't want to tell me, which means it can't be good. Sadie. He sighs before finding my eyes again. Your father and mother had lived outside of Orthani, near the Casadurna Ridge. When we got to their cabin, it had been burned to the ground. There were signs of a struggle, and we were able to deduce that a very young child had been in the cabin, and that the Dark Elves who'd burned it to the ground had taken the child with them. Tears begin to burn anew in my eyes. the feeble hope that had begun to grow inside me smashed beneath the weight of Jorban's words. I'd thought maybe I'd get to meet my parents. That maybe they hadn't abandoned me, that they wanted me. I thought maybe I'd have a home. Tears fall silently down my cheeks in hot tracks, Ranem dropping into a crouch beside me to wipe them away. His heart glows a pale blue as his long fingers caress my face, brushing my hair back and wiping tears away from my eyes as they fall. Sadie, he murmurs softly. The pain and sadness in Ranem's voice is an echo of my own, a sob slipping between my lips. I never knew them, and had stopped wondering about them so long ago to try and save myself the heartache, but hearing that they were murdered in cold blood. Would you like for me to continue? Jorban asks gently. I don't know if I do. I don't know how much more I can take, but there are still too many unanswered questions to stop now, so I nod. You are the final descendant of Ephitus, and all of this time you've harboured his power. Garagal and I set out to find you, hoping to protect you from those that would try to use your powers the way that the Dark Elves once hoped to use Iphitus. We failed you, Sadie. My eyes shoot up to meet Jorban's. Failed me? How did you fail me? We are not the only ones who know of your power, and because of this, you are in grave danger, Jorban replies, leaning forward in his chair. The elf you were betrothed to, Indor, his father knows who you are. It is why you were betrothed to him. At the mention of Indor, Ranem growls, the blue of his heart blooming into a deep red. Gandalf knows, I ask quietly, and Jorban nods in response. Before we found you, we found signs that we were not the only ones searching for Iphitus's descendants. Gandalf is a powerful sorcerer, among the most powerful of his kind. We believe he plans to use you for the same spell that was prepared those centuries ago for Iphitus. He will not use her. Ranem grinds out beside me, his fists clenching. What kind of spell? I press, my eyes on Jorban. It is a psionic spell, one of the worst kind. I told you that magic demands a price. Only so much power can be wielded by any one being. Think of it as a built-in system of checks and balances. With you, however, Jorban says carefully, your body could withstand far more energy. The spell we believe Gandalf plans to cast would enslave the planet. It would invade the minds and bodies of every creature on Protheka and make them bow to his will. Channeling this level of magic would destroy you in the process. No! Ranem shouts suddenly, springing back to his feet beside me. They cannot have her. We have to kill them. Jorban simply nods, unfazed by Ranem's outburst as my mind whirls. I've walked through my life thinking I was nothing more than some sordid doll, content to be bought and sold like I was an object. Knowing what I know now about Iphitus, my lineage, Jorban, Gandalf's plans, it seems like too much for my body to contain. What do we do? I ask, a sudden calm sweeping through me. I will have time to cry later, to grieve the loss of the life I thought I could build with Ranem, but right now, the fate of the planet rests squarely on the three of us. I can't let Gandalf use me, not if the rest of the world is at stake. We hide you, Ranem interjects, turning to face me, his muscles twitching and heart black with worry. I will hunt them. I will kill them. No one will take you from me. Ranem, no. You will be safe. I will keep you safe. I promised you that. This is about more than just me now, I cry, rising to my feet to stare up at him. I can't ignore this. I can't stay locked up somewhere while you hunt down Indor and Gandalf. There will always be another Gandalf unless we do something more than just kill him. Ranem looks at me quietly, seeming to chew on my words as I turn back to Jorban. You said you thought I could be the salvation of Protheka. What did you mean? Is there a way we can stop this for good? Jorban nods solemnly as he looks between Ranem and I. There is. You are the great equalizer, Sadie. the only one who can stand against the magic that the dark elves wield. However, you must choose this. I cannot force you." I turned Jorban's words over in my head, waiting for him to continue. "This is no small feat. Your powers will need honing before you try to use them to change this world," Jorban warns. "Will you take on this duty, Sadie? Will you carry the fate of Protheka on your shoulders?" There isn't much left of the world after the orcs came.
Savage. Brutal. Merciless.
If you're a woman, you're property. Even to other humans.
What happens when an orc stakes his claim on a human woman? Who would dare to stop him?
Me.